Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Genevieve here from Rec Train Services Limited, an HR consulting firm. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Cynthia and her team especially, for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit of knowledge of what I've gathered throughout my working experience. To start off with, hopefully, I wouldn't take too much of your time this evening. I know it's a Saturday evening and you wouldn't want to be listening to my boring voice for the next hour. So I'll make it as brief, clear, and concise as possible, which is exactly what a CV is all supposed to be. Just a couple of things to expect. I'll just be talking you through what to look out for on the CV, whether you're a potential employer, whether you're looking to change jobs, whether you're even just looking to review your CV for any potential jobs that will come in. So what are the sorts of things that I look out for, my employers look out for, making it very easy for us to be able to shortlist. And when I say shortlist, meaning sifting it down to the right particular people that we're looking for. Then the next set, I'll be talking about HR etiquette. Generally, I'll be touching base on general basis of etiquette at the workplace, but obviously narrowing it down into as far as HR profession is concerned. So, just to give you a little bit of a theory to what a CV is, I'm sure you all know what a CV stands for. It's a Latin phrase, curriculum vitae, which is a Latin phrase where it literally means the summary of your professional life, basically. It needs to really tell a story as far as your career is concerned. But before I go into that, typically to look out for what you should be putting on your CV and what not to put on your CV, there's just a couple of facts that I wanted to share with you as far as putting together or as far as the CV is concerned. Generally you would spend at least 80,000 hours of your working life, of your life working. So you can imagine how critical it is as far as making sure that standing out is actually very, very important. And on average, a person would change careers 6 times in their lifetime. So maybe think about where you are now, and look at what number you're on. But on average, one person at a particular time will be changing their career 6 times. And it could be different positions. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a financial analyst to maybe an IT person or whatsoever. It could be a financial within the financial sector, but then you'll be changing different positions throughout. And on average, a person would change it 6 times. So it's quite interesting to know that it will be good for you to know exactly or try to figure out exactly where you are at as far as that is concerned, with regards to your CV. Now, with regards to your career, my apologies. Now, your CV, obviously, we're going to be talking about your CV, is your selling tool. It's one of the things that really speaks on your behalf without you being there. And basically, as far as that is concerned, that is exactly what it's supposed to be. As far as your CV is concerned, it's your personal advertising tool that speaks in your absence as far as shortlisting, as far as sifting is concerned. So it's very, very important that you get it right. It's very important that it speaks on your behalf if you are not there. In addition to that, your CV has to create an interest. It needs to arouse the curiosity of the person who's actually reviewing your CV. It needs to also be very factual, very clear and concise, which is why I always say to people that don't let somebody do your CV for you. Understand what goes into the CV and then you do it yourself. You tailor it to the particular job that you're going to apply for. So have a generic CV, but also when you're applying for jobs, you need to tailor the CV to that particular job, which means that it needs to be very factual, clear, and very concise. It needs to stand out from the crowd, by making a personal advertising tool. It means that it has to really speak for me to be able to, it has to attract my attention. It has to raise my curiosity to want to get to know a little bit more about the person that is on the CV. It needs to also summarize your work history for you in your absence, where the person or the potential recruiter or the potential employer would have an idea in terms of where you've been. Importantly, it cannot be more than 2 pages. If it's two pages, beyond 2 pages, maximum, absolute maximum should be 3 pages. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of questions, people asking, Jen, but we have extensive experience and stuff, and sometimes it goes on it. And I'm sure with time you would understand why we keep saying that it has to be at least 2 pages as far as that is concerned. And your CV also goes to show that you have very good written communication, as well as you pay attention to detail. Nowadays, Word is actually makes it easier for us, but believe it or not, sometimes people also send CVs through full of grammatical errors, and we'll talk about that in a bit as far as that is concerned. On average, it takes, as recruiter, well, personally myself, it takes me up to 15 seconds for me to review a CV immediately to know I'm going to shortlist this person. And I'm sure you're wondering why, and I'm sure it will come to light as we're going along with regards to the typical things I look out for, and as far as that is concerned. Now, let's go into the CV, typically what you should have in the CV. So if you have your CV with you, please take it, and then let's look through to make sure that what we're going to talk through is actually what should be on the CV, or is what has to be on the CV. Now, you need to tell me a story. Your CV has to tell me a story, okay? The story has to be raising my curiosity to want to shortlist you, to get you in, then put the name to the face and do that. And as a typical example, you go to places, you meet people, the very first thing, or even I just say that to even have just a normal relationship with different people through your networking, the very first time you meet somebody, once they meet you and they connect with you, the very first thing they may want to ask you is your name, which is what I want to know on your CV. And when it comes to your name, I want to be able to make sure that your name on your CV, I have a very long name. My full name actually is Genevieve Waltrud Efiabrin. That's a bit of a mouthful. And again, remember, we're dealing with 2 pages, not more than 3, not more than 2 pages, maximum, absolute maximum 3. So your name has to be very straight to the point, very simple, Genevieve Puni. If you have middle names and you want to abbreviate it, fantastic. It's fine, but don't write the long name across it. It makes it look a bit scanty. So just make sure you have your first, your last name, and your middle names in the end. In terms of your contact details, that will be the next thing, because obviously when somebody meets you, they get to know your name. Oh, so how do we keep in touch with you? That is your contact details, because somebody shortlist your CV. It means that they will be contacting you. And normally, or nowadays, because technology is taking over, hardly would somebody write to you in terms of post. So I always recommend that have your contact details as far as your telephone number, maximum 2 numbers, which is one regular number that you have and the second number. I know in Ghana, because of the network issues, it's always advisable to have 2 numbers, so that if we don't get through to the first one, at least we can get through to the second one. Then your email address, very, very, very important. Please, your email address speaks very big volumes about yourself. Believe it or not, you don't want very, very different email addresses that would connote something completely different, give a different impression to the client. So give a very simple email address: genevieve.puni@gmail.com, samuel.smith@gmail.com, hotmail.com, yahoo.com. Nothing like sexy babes, beach girl, busy bee @gmail.com. It speaks volume about yourself, because I know when we're all in university, school, we have all our nicknames and we come up with all these sort of email addresses. It's not appropriate to have that on your CV. So make sure that your CV is a very simple professional email and you're good to go. As I mentioned, the telephone number has to be maximum 2 numbers, one regular one you use and the subsequent one. And please, if you do have to use somebody else's telephone number, please let them know, because half of the time we call them and then the first thing that we go is, "Why?" Because they're not even aware that we're calling, or they're not even aware their numbers have been used to put on their CV. So make sure that as far as your numbers are concerned, if you're going to put a third party person on there, then obviously you have to make sure that you let the person know. The next thing I would want to know, or I would want to see with regards to your CV list, is that now I know your name, I know your contact details, how to get in touch with you. Then the person will go, tell me a little bit about yourself. And that is where your personal profile comes in. Now, your personal profile should not be anything more than 50 to 80 words. Now, 2 pages, as I mentioned, and again, recruiters, we use up to 20 seconds to decide who has to be shortlisted. And this is where it comes in very critical. 50 to 80 words with regards to your personal profile. Some people call it career objectives. Some people call it personal profile. Some people call it anything that some other names that they want to call it. Importantly is that you need to make sure that you summarize it, okay, into a personal profile. It should not be more than 50 to 80 words. It has to be written professionally in the third party statement. So an individual, a consensuous person, not Genevieve is, not Marian is, but it should be an articulate individual, then you carry on from there. It should really summarize your career status. So if you have 20 years experience, it should say 20 years experience in what sectors, where your area of expertise come in, and your areas of interest also comes in. So you go in with regards to the summarizing the number of years of experience and obviously your expertise in that area, the sectors you've worked in, and then the sector that you are looking to venture into, including the level of the role that you are applying for. It's very, very, very important, and the reasons why you would want to work for that particular company. That is it. Now, if I'm to read that personal profile, it gives me everything about you in summary. If I'm very curious and I want to understand the length of times you've worked at a particular place, your loyalty and all the other things, then I'll go down into detail into the CV to look at the areas you worked and your responsibilities and stuff. But at least the personal profile gives me a little bit of an indication of the sort of person I'm looking for, because it gives me an idea of your career status in terms of years of experience, the years of expertise, the areas of expertise, the sectors you've worked in, what roles you've worked in, and why you want to work in that particular sector. Next to it, you would want to know a little bit about the person's skills. What skill sets do you have that obviously my client or I would be able, or the potential employer would be able to leverage on? And when I talk about skills, I'm talking about soft, I'm talking about technical skills, and I'm also talking about all the skills that you can think of, obviously relating to the role that you're applying for. Okay. Now, in the skill set, don't just list them. Communication skills, paying attention to detail skills, interpersonal skills. You need to show me in one simple line. This is where your English teacher will be very proud of you, because then you're summarizing everything in a very straight, concise and clear to the point. So for example, if it's communications, how have you exhibited, or what sort of expertise do you have as far as as far as communication is concerned, whether it's verbal or in writing? So for example, with communication, you can talk about the fact that you're able to establish rapport at all levels within every organization. That is one liner. You are fine. Another one would be listening, and maybe listening and problem solving skills, where you're able to evaluate situations with an open mind and solve them. That is one of the areas. When you talk about HR, for example, you're looking at technically, you're looking at having the knowledge and the practices or the expertise when it comes to the Labor Act, or when it comes to labor, when it comes to HR principles and stuff like that. When it comes to IT, you're very much literate, whether it's an advanced, intermediate, a beginner in Microsoft product. If there's any technical softwares that you are proficient in, you state the level. So whether it's SAP, LMS, any other HR software or any other accounting software, QuickBooks, if you are the expert in that area, if you're a beginner in that area, you state it, so that it gives the recruiter, remember, is speaking on your behalf, so it gives the recruiter an idea of the level of expertise that you have. When it comes to your next one, which will be the professional experience, and remember, It's professional experience because you're looking for work. So after your skills, that will be the next thing that needs to come in. Again, 2 pages, remember. What I'm critically looking out for as far as your work experience is concerned, it's the date of employment. If you don't remember the month, that's fine, but at least the year from to is very, very important. The name and the location of the employer. Now, it's very important you talk about the location of the employer because it's not everybody that may know where Senior Ventures is or Genevieve Ventures is. So just give the person an indication of the areas that you've worked in. Importantly is also the nature of the business needs to be on there. Now, some people may have Rectrain. When you listen to the name or when you read the name, it sort of give you an idea it's to do with training or recruitment or HR services. But when you have something like Genevieve Ventures, it's very difficult to ascertain what sort of business it is. So obviously, if you put that on there in terms of the nature of business, it makes it easier for us to be able to figure out what it is. Of course, then you have your job title. And then importantly, the terms of job. Is it a permanent contract? Was it a temporary contract? Was it an internship? Was it an attachment? Was it a casual work that you did? Then you put that into bracket. Then your main key overall scope of the reason that you were recruited for. So for example, if you were recruited as an operations manager, you are responsible for the day-to-day operations of the business activities. That is the main scope of your role. Then you come down to list not more than 5 core day-to-day responsibilities. Now, a lot of people tend to copy their job descriptions and put it on there. Please don't do that. Pick the main core responsibilities. There are lots of things on the responsibility, not the responsibility, the duties that you'll be able to summarize them into maximum 5 key areas that you can actually put down on your CV. Then if you have any key achievements, which is optional. Now, the key achievements has to be something that impacted the business on a positive note and yourself. So you can put that on there as well as that is concerned. So your professional experience needs to be in that order. Then obviously with the most recent or the current one at the top in that order. Half of the time you get people doing it the other way around. So 1995 first, then you go all the way down, then you're now looking at 2019. No, 2019 needs to be at the top before the rest of it comes as well. If you also have any gaps in between, as females, sometimes we can take a career break because of motherhood, whether you took a career break because of school, maybe you were not very well, or generally you were just very tired and you want to take a career break. You also want to state that in there. So for example, you could have 2019 to 2022 career break, and that's it. So that answers with regards to why you have such a gap within your CV so that the client or the potential recruiter knows the reason why that is so. Education then comes just the same as work experience. You go the name of the school, the location of the school, the year you finished, the course that you studied. Now it could be BA in psychology, that is fine. You don't need to list the subjects. I've come across CVs where people are going to Legon, as an example, semester 1, they list the courses. Semester 2, they list the courses. Semester 3, they list the courses. Year 2, they list the courses. Year 3, they list the courses. That is a lot. I don't need that at that point. And typically, what I need to know is whether you did a degree in human resources management, you have a master's in psychology, you have a master's in international relations. That is all I need to know as far as that is concerned. So don't list the subjects. Next to it, obviously after that, would be hobbies and your interest. Please, hobbies, interest. Just make sure that they're relevant to the role that you're applying for. I once remember getting a CV from somebody and their hobby was kissing. We all love kissing. We all love kissing. But it can't be, yes, it can be a hobby for you, but should it really be on your CV as far as that is concerned? And I'm wondering, how is that going to help you in the role that you're going to apply for? Is it to tell the client that you are a good kisser? I mean, really? it's not really appropriate then. So you have to be very careful with sort of the hobbies and interests that you have. Only list them that is applicable to the role. Then, of course, you have references. Now, with references, I always recommend to people provide it only when it's requested. So at the bottom of the reference, you just write available on request. Okay, unless in the application process they are telling you to make sure that you provide the details, which sometimes the public sector does. But in most private sectors, if I really want to know who your referees are, I can always ask that when you come for interviews or even at the point of taking the job, offering you the job. So that is really what I look out for. And in terms of your references, if they ask you for it, provide the most current or the most recent employer, one professional, one character. Okay, I always recommend that you do one professional, or you can do two professionals, one character, and then you're good to go. The professional can be the most recent, the previous employer. Then obviously a character will be a colleague that you worked with as far as that is concerned. Okay. One will be wondering what to do next as far as obviously the good time to apply for a job. Okay. Make sure that if you're going to apply for a job and you see the vacancy, take your time and read the vacancy. Don't just send it through because you want to send it through. Because half of the time, that is the reason why people don't get responses, because you're not suitable for that particular role, but then you just sent your CV through. That's one of the areas that you can use as far as a good time to apply for jobs. One of the options also is through recommendations or when you're being headhunted, which means that people are recommending you for this particular role. And obviously, once you're being recommended, you ask for the details of the role so that you tailor your CV to that. And also another opportunity is through networking. I can't stress enough on networking. And don't just go for networking because, or to network or to talk to every single person. Make sure you connect. It's not about going in there straight away to look for a job, but it's about relationship building. Through that relationship building, they may not be the person that may help you as far as finding work, but they may be the route to give you the right channel to look for work as far as that is concerned. So really, that is what it is as far as your CV list is concerned. So it's just your name, your contact details, whether it's email, telephone numbers, your personal profile, your skills that you're going to add on to the business, your work experience, your educational experience, then obviously your hobbies and interests, then obviously your references available to request. So that is why I said it has to be two pages, not more than 2 pages, maximum 3 pages. And especially when you tailor it to the role, then obviously you're good to go. Sometimes we come across a lot of people who make a lot of mistakes. Very important when you're putting together your CV. Nowadays, Microsoft gives you all the opportunity to be able to get through that. So be very careful. Check your spellings. We get misspellings, grammar errors on CVs, ambiguous statements. Example, people can just put PA for so many years, or I've been an HR assistant for so many years. What is so many years? Be very specific. Use the SMART approach. Is it 20 years? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? Outdated CVs. Sometimes we get CVs, you call them, oh, madam, I left that place long time ago. Well, why didn't you update it? Because it's very unappealing. And sometimes because you have such a gap, we may not even come and we may not even call you because you haven't updated your CV. And some people put irrelevant information. I once remember getting information on somebody that had the sex, their parents' name, their siblings' name, where they come from, their marital, their date of birth, the church they go to, and all that. And I was wondering, how relevant is that as far as being shortlisted at the very beginning is concerned? Because all that information can be taken once you get the job. People put in personal profile information which is not relating to the job that they're applying for. That is also one of the mistakes they make. You can also have somebody having a job objectives, a career objectives, and then a separate personal profile. And when you critically look at all those three, it's all been merged. You can merge them into one 50 to 80 words. And when you look at them critically, you can see that they've just used different words, but it connotes the same thing as far as that is concerned. Some people also put the educational experience before their work experience. It is not wrong, but I would always recommend that you put your work experience first, because it is the reason why you're applying for the job, not necessarily the educational experience. Some people also, as I mentioned earlier, date not in chronological order. Different font sizes and font styles. Oh my God. Because they're copying from different companies that they're working for, who have different acceptable standards as far as their brand guide is concerned. Where some people may be using font Arial, others may be using Caliber. They just copy and put it. Or sometimes you get different colors. So you have their name in orange, they're writing in pink, and then different colors or whatsoever. Just make sure you have one standard color. Black, acceptable is fine. Color coding sections is also not very important. It's not appropriate at all. Okay, so in summary, just remember that your CV is the best impression of you. Keep it the KISS way. And when I say the KISS way, I mean keep it very, very, very simple and straightforward, because it has to speak on your behalf. And that's the end of CV as far as that is concerned. Okay, so now I want to talk briefly about etiquette. Okay, and when we talk about etiquette, etiquette is all to do with acceptable behaviors, whether it's within society, whether it's within a work environment. Of course, this particular instance, we're looking at work environment, okay? And etiquette really is more of a polite behavior within a society, a workplace, or groups. When we're all growing up, we knew a thing about culture. You know, they always say culture is the way to live and everything else. Now, etiquette is really a code of polite behavior within the workplace when we talk about etiquette in general, but linking it to workplace is more to do with the business etiquette. And it differs from place to place, it differs from business to business, it differs from company to company, but they all have one underlying thing in common: acceptable behavior. What is accepted? You go into, for example, GT Bank, they have orange as their colors, the way the staff wear their uniforms, the way they relate to their clients and stuff. Once you see an employee of GT Bank, you know this person is for GT Bank. And usually it's more to do with the culture, is more to do with the business behavior, the polite behavior, accepted behavior, or the customary code for the business as far as that is concerned. But before I go into it, I just wanted to share briefly, and I'm going to share a document with you guys afterwards as a referral tool. Because of time, I wouldn't want to go deep into a lot of it. But one will be wondering, you're working in HR, you have the potential, you want to work in HR. I'm sure some of us on here are gurus, others are middle, others are newbies and everything else, which is great because we all learn from each other and everything. And one will be wondering, for somebody to be an HR person to start off with, what are the sort of things that you would be having in terms of qualities of an HR professional? It could be technical qualities, it could be soft skills, it could be anything. But in terms of qualities as an HR professional, some of the things that I personally think as an HR person, and my previous presenters have mentioned quite a lot. Dr. Ayi mentioned quite a lot the last time. Rita Kushi mentioned quite a lot the last time. A few others, which other presenters have also mentioned quite a few things. So when it comes to qualities of an HR professional, you need to be an industry expert. No two ways about that. Legalities when it comes to Labor Act. How well informed are you when it comes to all the sections? When it comes to technical advisory services, technical advisory, giving information or advisory to staff members when it comes to employee relations, how fully well equipped are you? In terms of skill set, in terms of qualities, what is your enduring skills for life when it comes to critical thinking, abstract logic beyond thinking? What are the things that you have as far as enduring skills is concerned? Another quality is, how approachable can you be? Or how approachable are you? Are people comfortable coming to you to speak to you about issues at work where you can keep it very confidential, which is another quality? Very important in our practice. Confidentiality is very key. It's one of the biggest things that sometimes even when you know that you're going to terminate somebody and you're having lunch with the person, I remember Dr. Ayi referred to that the last time, you can't tell anything to the person because that is your code. You have to make sure that, you can't divulge any information, and that is where confidentiality come in. Again, one of the qualities also is, are you a leader of influence and practice? So being a leader of influence and practice, having very good communication skills, both in writing and both in writing and verbal. How analytical are you? How of a good problem solver are you? A solution provider and executor are you? Are you very self-disciplined when it comes to time management? How proactive are you? How can you be innovative and creative, thinking outside the box? When it comes to future of work, what are you thinking as far as, operations, HR operations within the environment that you find yourself in is concerned? Are you very highly organized? Are you a good planner? Are you thorough when you're giving information out or when you're disseminating information to other parties? In terms of your human relationships or human relations, how do you empathize with people? Those are all the qualities of an HR person. Can you make decisions independently with justifications why you're making certain decisions as far as the business or as far as the situation at hand is concerned? How curious and dynamic are you as an HR professional? Do you pay attention to detail? That's a very great quality or a very great skill set that one needs to have. How strong are you when it comes to administration? Because if you're not good in administration, yes, you have to be or you have to be good in strategy, but you also have to be very good in administration, because if you're not very organized, you would always have things all over the place as far as it's concerned. Can you be very flexible but structured? That in our environment or in our practice, it's very important that we are structured, but then you remain very flexible when it comes to situations that comes into your hands. When it comes to team playing, how good are you when it comes to team playing? Are you able to work alone? What sort of entrepreneurial mindset do you have? As far as making sure the business decision, you also sit at the table and be able to give that information out. How digitally savvy are you? We're all talking about AI nowadays. We're talking about analytics, how you can identify data and how you can collect and even make sense of the data. What sort of softwares are in vogue that HR companies or HR businesses or HR departments are using? How technically savvy are you with the aim of improving efficiency, resources, and all the other things? We need to be that. When it comes to general HR work ethics or etiquette, if you want to put it that way, I've sort of mentioned a few, but I broke it down into 3 areas where you talk about telephone etiquette, email etiquette, and general etiquette, and also the HR etiquette as well. So 4 different areas I tapped it into, but I've sort of mixed it up with regards to that. So obviously because of time reasons. So when you talk about general HR etiquette or general etiquette in terms of the workplace, you think the first thing that comes into mind, which I've already mentioned, is confidentiality at all times and at all cost. How confidential can you keep? How confidential can you keep information? How can you keep information that is not supposed to be going out to third parties? How can you protect that information without divulging it to other parties? Sometimes we go for lunch with people and through it slips and stuff like that. We have to make sure that we're very technical as far as confidentiality is concerned. You have to be compassionate and constructive when you're criticizing. Very important. Because sometimes the information you're putting out there is information that may have some repercussions to somebody. How are you going to be able to empathize with the person and put yourself in that person's shoes and criticize? If you have to criticize, be very constructive about it. Do you dress very well per the company policy and the grooming standards that you've put out there yourself? Because at the end of the day, you have to represent what you are speaking for. And if an HR professional or even an employee, you are not speaking the volumes of what is expected of you as far as dressing standards of the company, then obviously what speaks of other individuals, or what will people be thinking about the business or whatsoever. When it comes to phone calls, whether it's internal phone calls, you have landlines, or external calls coming in and stuff like that, make sure you pick it within 3 rings. Always introduce yourself. Good afternoon, this is Genevieve here from Rectory Services Limited. How may I direct your call? Very simple. As long as the person knows where they've called, the name, then it makes it easier. Just in case they've got the wrong line, then at least by identifying yourself, they know that they've got the wrong line. And if it's the right place, you direct them to it. If it goes on ringing for a long time and you pick it up, apologize. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. I'm sorry I didn't pick the call on time. This is Genevieve here. How may I help you? It's all very good etiquette, HR, good etiquette, ethics that you need to have. How do you have to exhibit professionalism and be polite at all times, irrespective of the level. If it's a junior member, if it's an intern, you have to be exhibiting professionalism and obviously be polite to everyone at all times. Don't raise your voice. Never raise your voice. There are some people, I have a very high pitched tone voice. So I have to make sure that within the workplace, I'm not seen as shouting or whatsoever. And don't be shouting across calling somebody. Sometimes you have clients sitting in your reception area, somebody's passing by, and somebody's now speaking in our local dialect to them where other people are sitting there. It is not very professional and it is not very appropriate. So let's make sure that we don't raise our voice across, or even in the office, we don't shout across and what have you. Whenever you are in doubt, make sure that you refer. Okay? It's very important that you refer. Get the clearance, get the understanding. So the information you gave me, if I'm right, did you say I should do this? Just to clarify, to make sure I'm on the right path. Did you say I should always do this? That is fine. Don't take the information and you don't understand it to make the mistake. Ask, clarify, refer, and make sure that you always use pleases and thank you, irrespective of who it is. We have a habit of, whether it's a junior person, we don't say thank you to. You need to say thank you and please to every single person that helps you one way or the other within the workplace. Because if that person's role is to make tea for you, if they don't make you the tea, you can't think straight. If that person's role is to make sure that the room is always tidy for you to have your meetings, for you to be able to do that, your desk is always tidy and everything else, then you have to make sure that if you're asking them to do something, or even when you see them, oh, thank you very much for clearing up, oh, thank you very much for doing that, it does not change anything or whatsoever. So always make sure that you use your pleases and thank yous. Make sure that you always apologize for mistakes made. Some people find it very hard to make mistakes, even when they know that their team members, who happens to be a junior member of staff, is correct. But because they're above them, they find it very hard to say, I'm sorry. There is nothing wrong in apologizing, and there's nothing wrong in accepting your mistakes, because at the end of the day, it's a mistake you've made. You've accepted it, and then you move on. So always apologize for mistakes that you've made. Make sure that you are not late. And if you are late to events, to meetings, to whatever it is within the workplace, make sure you notify in advance or you apologize when you get there. Avoid office gossips with anyone and about someone, because believe you me, it really can grow very nasty. So let's try and make sure that we avoid office gossips and office politics. And don't use or misuse office property. We all know sometimes, the odd bit here and there, we can make one phone call because you're holding a company phone, or you can print something or whatever you. But don't go to work and sit on at work, watch Kumkum Baja, for example. That is data. That is money that you're wasting for company, which could be used to do other things for employee engagement or even to increase salary. So make sure that you don't misuse office properties. And that's something that, we have to make sure we don't do. Avoid shorthand writing. Really bad. Because we have the habit of texting and shorthand writing, so we take it to work. And sometimes it projects in our emails that we send to clients, we send to our colleagues in the office and stuff like that. So make sure that you avoid shorthand writing. Be very mindful of your attitude. Be very mindful of your attitude, because your body language speaks volumes of it. As you all may know, communication is really 40% writing and the rest is 60% is behavior. So please be very mindful of your attitude. Respect the opinions of others. When you're talking about other people, respect their opinion. Okay? Make sure you respect their opinion, and that's it. Communicate politely at all levels to everyone. Show interest in ER issues and deal with it promptly. Make sure you do a walk round very often. Go around the offices, departments, check on everybody. Just make sure that, everybody's fine. And then you come back to the office. Have an open door policy. Be very open. Have an open door policy, but always make sure that there are specific days that you open it to employees so that you can also have some time to do some work for that. And then the very last thing I would say is that take pride in everything that you do. Make sure that when I say take pride, I mean personal responsibility in delivering excellence. Make sure that you take pride in everything that you do. And as I mentioned again, remember, be mindful of your attitude, because your attitude can determine or your attitude does determine your altitude. Okay? Now, one will be wondering finally, how do you apply all these etiquettes and everything else? Your thinking skills can help you to be very proactive. If you're very highly organized, it helps you to meet deadlines. Your constant reading can help you bring ideas on board. Your IT skills can help you solve operational issues. And little projects you work on, can help you improve your team working skills. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm on standby for any questions that you may have. I'm looking forward to learning from every single one. I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong in some of the information that I've put out there. And obviously, if you have a different opinion to it, we all are here to learn from each other. Thank you very much and have a great evening. Thank you. Bye.